hands down, one of the most frequently asked questions I get is, how the heck do I get my partner on board to talk about money? I've tried bringing it up. I've tried being sneaky about it. I've tried being really direct about it, but it doesn't seem to really go anywhere. So I'm really going to break down for you guys today how exactly you can do that. Stay tuned. Welcome to Mind Money Balance. I'm your host, Lindsay Bryan-Podvin. I'm a woman of color, popcorn connoisseur, and one of the first financial therapists in the United States. This is the weekly podcast all about making money feel good in your relationship. The no guilt, no shame podcast, so you can stand in your power as a couple. Let's go. Have you tried getting your partner on board, but you end up feeling like you're nagging or annoying your partner? You are not alone. In today's episode, I'm going to break down the problem that I see and my solution. So the problem I see so often with the money talks is that a lot of people say the end-all be-all of having the money conversation is understanding your numbers. You have to know your budget. You have to know the different line items. You have to have everything planned out in black and white before you have a meaningful conversation. And the problem with this approach is that it actually erases any nuance about a couple's particular financial situation. It doesn't take into account things like a couple's beliefs, their values, and by diving in and just looking at the money talk as a numbers thing and not an emotional or psychological thing, you can have a lot of tension and frustration, and honestly, I see all the time, just plain out, flat out avoidance of not wanting to talk about it at all. So rather than leading with facts and figures and data to try and get your partner on board, a better solution is to take into account your partner's emotions. What's going on with their mindset? What is contributing to their money story? And by doing this, you can elicit your partner's unique values and your strengths to help you really set yourselves up for not just having a successful money talk, but having a successful, healthy relationship that includes money in your relationship. So my guess is you've probably tried the debate team approach. This is where you come in hard with the facts and the figures, and you've got the data, and you've got the pie charts and the bar charts and all this stuff to try and prove your side or prove that you are right. You might have tried a little bit of gentle peer pressure, right? So maybe trying, but my neighbors told me that this is what they do, which actually is hilarious. I don't really know anybody who knows their neighbor's financial situation. I was just trying to think of peer pressure that was not so obvious. So anyway, if your neighbors do it and they're sharing it with you, I kind of think that's great. Sidebar. Anyway, let's get back to it. You've probably tried saying, some expert told me to. I read Oprah said that we have to talk about money, or, Sally Krawcheck told me we have to talk about money, or whoever it is. You've probably tried to lead the approach by, in your mind, having a neutral third party, but really you're just saying this person is backing me up too. You also might have tried the drag them kicking and screaming approach, which is, this is what we're doing with our money, and you're going to handle it. You're going to just have to deal with it. And the problem with all of these approaches, whether you're coming at it from a debate team standpoint, a peer pressure standpoint, or a too bad this is what we're doing standpoint, is it sets you up to be on opposition with your partner instead of on the same team, okay? We need to get people who are in relationships, who want to talk about money, on the same page. And this comes from some very old marital therapy 101, which is listening, which sounds like a facepalm. Like, are you kidding me, lady? You spent the last 3 minutes telling me about what I'm not supposed to do and I'm just supposed to listen. Okay. I know that sounds frustrating, but let me kind of show you the how. Let me walk you through this. I won't leave you hanging. To get on the same page, you have to really listen to the why. What is underneath the reason that they want to get on board about it? Why is it important to them? The key to listening is biting your friggin' tongue, okay? When you hear your partner say something and you can feel the word but coming up in your throat, I want you to bite your tongue and take a deep breath and really listen. That was a very emphasized listen to them, okay? So before we get there, we want to set the stage by letting our partners know that we take accountability for our own ish, right? We know that we are not innocent in this whole situation. So acknowledge that you've been trying to get them on board. Ask them, notice, point things out. Say, hey, babe, I know I'm always trying to talk about money. I am realizing that there's probably a better way to do this. And I also know when I bring it up, I get an eye roll or a shoulder turn or we'll talk about it later. Why do you think it is that you seem to not want to engage in the money talk? And then this is where you practice pausing and letting them answer. And that way we can hear from them. We can learn from them the reason behind what we are perceiving as they don't want to do it, they're not interested, they're annoyed with me, whatever it is. We can actually listen to what it is that's causing them to have a hard time engaging in the money talk. Once we do that, we want to ask them for what would make it better, right? Okay, you told me that when I bring up money, it makes you cringe, it makes you want to throw up, it makes you feel like we're going to get into a fight. What would it take for you to want to talk about money? Or what could I say so it doesn't come across as me belittling you, right? We want to ask them for what is it that I can do or I can change as a partner to hold more space for my partner to give their whole selves, to show up with this conversation in a way that works. So we want to acknowledge what's going on, own our own part, and then ask them for what could change. And it might be something really simple. It might be, babe, it seems like you always bring it up after a really long day of work and I'm just tapped out. I would much rather talk about it like a Sunday when we are just chilling and being lazy and sleeping in and enjoying our coffee. Or, it seems like when we try to talk about it, there's always a million other things going on. We're trying to get kids ready for bed. We're trying to pack lunches. We're trying to do all this stuff. Is there a way that we could have our grandparent or the kids' grandparents come over? Is there a way we could have the dog walker come over? Is there some way that we could get space where it's quiet so we can actually have this conversation? So they may have an answer for you about why it's been hard to engage in that conversation so far. Once we've got that, then the real deep listening comes in. And again, with therapy, we don't just want to listen, but we want to actively listen. We want to ensure to our partner that we heard them. And one of the best ways to do that is by repeating back what they say, which I know sounds bananas, and I understand that it is not a natural way that we speak. So what you can do is just say, okay, I think I've got you. What I think you said was blah, blah, blah. Or, okay, I'm thinking I'm understanding what you're saying. Let me make sure, and then repeat it, right? So something like, okay, I think I've got you. I just heard you say you don't want to talk about retirement unless we have a professional around. Is it right that you want us to get a financial planner before we talk about retirement? And then again, pause. This is the miracle. The beauty of the pause is that they can either say, yes, you got me, you heard me correctly, or they can say, no, that's not what I meant. And the no is just as powerful as the yes because you're gathering a lot of valuable data from your partner about the why behind why they aren't interacting in the money conversation with you. Yeah? Cool. we've done a lot of this digging, right? We're digging stuff up. We are working hard at being able to listen to our partner and listen and reflect and do that little game. Then, only then, can we move to finding the middle ground. Where is the collaboration? Where is that area of overlap where there can be some shared values or some shared financial planning that is going to help both of you get on board with some sort of financial plan? Yeah? Let's try this. Let me give you an example. I like to have examples. I like you to know what it might sound like or look like. So an example of finding common ground might be, hey, now I've learned that the word budget makes you feel restricted. It sounds like you're open to having a money date if we call it a spending plan and make sure that the kids aren't around. Is that correct? Right? So we kind of put it all together. We take the listening, we reflect to them what we heard, we share with them that we understood what is getting in the way of them getting on board, and we also offered a reflection of what they said would work. Yeah? Cool. So I want to go back and repeat it. And the reason I do these little recaps, these little roundups, is that we are creatures who need repetition to learn. So you may have known that I wrote the book, The Financial Anxiety Solution. And in the editing process with my publisher, with my editor rather, we would go back and forth and she'd say to me, okay, I like this concept. Now you have to repeat it again. And I would always be like, why? I just explained it. And she was so helpful at getting me to understand. She said, because think of it like it has to kind of soak in. And the more we hear something, and maybe even if we explain the same concept, but using different examples or using slightly different language or tone or nuance or a metaphor, that might be the key that it takes a reader to understand your concept. So repetition is not what I thought it was. I thought I was like speaking to my readers as though they were dumb and they didn't understand my concepts, which is why I didn't want to repeat them in the book. And she helped me to understand, no, you aren't talking to your readers as though they're dumb. You're actually being extra generous with them by explaining it to them in multiple different ways and repeating it throughout the book so all of this information can soak in. So that's a little aside on why I like to do these recaps. So to get on the same page with your partner just about talking about money, you have to listen. And in order to listen in a way that actually works is you first want to acknowledge your own part, right? So I notice when I X, you do Y. It's neutral. You're just observing what has happened, and you're also owning your own part in the money talk. Then we ask them for what's important to them. What would it take for you to want to talk money? What can I do so that you feel like you're being heard more? Then we want to listen and reflect. So it's this little tennis tournament. It's this little ping pong. You're getting some information and you're just giving it right back to them and allowing them to say, yep, you've got it, or no, you did not. Then we want to find the middle ground. Where can we collaborate? What are the things we can do where we overlap? And that is going to help move you in the direction. You'll notice that I said this is all about getting your partner on board just to have the conversation. And I know it's a lot of work to do all of this just to sit down and have the money talk. But I am telling you, through anecdotal experience and through research, we know that couples who regularly talk about money are happier than those who don't. And I would also wager a bet, but I don't have evidence for it, though I could probably dig it up because I like putting on my researcher hat every now and then, that when we talk about it in a healthy way, when we talk about money in a way that isn't about shame or restriction, it actually strengthens our romantic relationships, which is why having this conversation and having it again and again, knowing that it's going to evolve. You aren't always going to be talking about your monthly budget. You aren't always going to be talking about investing in retirement. These conversations will change throughout the course of your relationship. Because depending on where you are in your lives, in your relationship, things are going to be different. Different things are going to have to take precedence depending on what's going on in your life. So getting your partner on board just to have the money conversation is hugely important and valuable so that you can have a money talk that is ongoing and sustainable. So if you liked today's episode, please do me a favor and rate and review this podcast wherever you listen. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you don't have to even have an Apple account, but just leave a review. And the reason for that is twofold. One, it helps me to understand what you like and, what you don't like about this podcast. But two is reviews and ratings in Apple Podcasts help this podcast to get heard by more people. And this is so important, right? Depending on what study you're looking at, the number one cause of divorce is arguments about money. And this is so preventable. That's what I'm incredibly passionate about, is helping you understand it doesn't have to be shameful or dirty or gross to talk about money. So would you do me a huge, huge favor? Leave me a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice so more people can see this. I extend my deepest gratitude to you. If you love this episode, take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram at MindMoneyBalance with your favorite takeaway. I love seeing what resonates with my listeners and sharing it in my stories. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week right here. Neither the host or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, medical, or other professional information. If you want professional help, please seek it out.